Oak Press. It's all about writing. I'm Christy Bradley, and I write mystery and paranormal romantic suspense for Dark Oak. I'm also president of Dallas and Memphis Mystery Writers Group. We meet in Bartlett, which is a little haul from here, but we meet once a month in Bartlett on the second Saturday of every month, where we can talk about mysteries where people don't think we're crazy. We have, through Dark Oak, we have issued 3 anthologies. Our third is Elmwood, Stories to Die For, about the historical Elmwood Cemetery in Memphis. We took that subject and ran with it. And there's all sorts of stories from comedy to downright terrifying and or even sad. And then my first is Mista, and my second is in Pagination right now.
It's
to be
sitting on your
released.
desk, as a matter of fact.
Yes, it is. I haven't turned it back yet. And the second in the series, Mysticalities, will be out sometime this spring. Patty?
I'm Pat Swatell. I'm the author of the Challenge Princess series. My claim to fame, I guess you could call it, is that I wrote 15 100,000 word novels in 5.5 years. Then I decided to share them. So, unlike, it's time to share. The first one was published, and is this one, Jealous Moon, and it was published November of 2016. The next one is back in the publisher's hands again. I did my editing. And will be coming out soon, and it's called Kidnapper's Moon. The series is 15 original series books. They are a sequence. They cross the world between, I call them cozy paranormals because I don't like the really bloody, gory, sit on the edge of your suspense. I like a quick read in my life. I'm a cozy mystery reader. So they're kind of in that same genre. You can experience the world of Kimmy and enjoy the real world and fly all over the world. So it's a lot of fun.
Well, I'm Alan Gilbreth. I'm the nominal head of Dark Oak Press and Media. So I'm also the host of Geek Tank Radio 1019. So you guys hear me on the radio all the time. Kind of scary. Whenever they come on and there's somebody happily talking about some terrible new discovery, some asteroid that's going to slam into the Earth, that chipper, happy, Billy Golf voice is me. So, I also write the Galen Vampire series, the Detective Peel series, and the Inspector Lago series. So, got a few things under my belt. All right, what are we starting with today? How to dive in and get started on the road to publication, basically. On the road to publication. Anybody know just the basic steps of getting to publishing?
Writing a book?
Well, it's writing the book. Writing the book is actually probably the easier part of it. Does anybody know the levels of publishing? All right, we'll start there. We'll get all the data dump stuff out of the way first, then we'll have a little more fun. Basically, your levels of publishing. You have what we like to call the Holy Grail, which is New York. This is where you get an agent. They shop your manuscript around, hopefully that there's some offers on it. You might even get an advance. Your book goes out to every major bookstore in the world, and you really, really, really hope it sells. Most books don't. Just as a horrible fact, most novels, like less than 1%, ever actually are quote unquote what you consider a success. At that level of publishing. They can put out 100 books, and one that catches fire and catches people's attention more than pays for the other 99 books that didn't. So, I tell everybody it's kind of a lightning strike. It's a little bit of a lottery, but you know, you can't win if you don't play. Now, the next level down from that is your speculative presses, your mid-level presses. Those are, well, that's like Dark Oak Press. We're a speculative mid-level press, aka we've got lots of authors, we put out lots of books. We do things very differently than New York. We don't put out 100,000 copies of a book at a time. We put a book out into general distribution, and we distribute books as they sell. And this is the business model of probably most of your publishers today. It keeps you from going broke. You know, you can't print 200,000 copies of a book that doesn't sell. Unless you're putting out another 99 that will. So in the Midwest, agents are rare. You don't usually see a lot of agents. You don't usually see draws. Normally, it's a little more personal. You probably actually know your publisher or you've met them. Your next level down from that is the true small press. And these are the small by design presses. These are boutique presses, if you will. And they usually specialize in one topic. So you may have teens. You know, you'll see a lot of teen magazines. You'll have some teen presses out there that specialize in just that one topic. Another big one, one in Arkansas I think of is Pro Se Press, and they specialize in pulp, like good old-fashioned 1950s pulp detective novels. Well, it's a genre. It still has a lot of fans, but it's not generally a big across-the-board book. So they're very boutique. They have a lot of writers, they win a lot of awards, and their books are specifically targeted to their audience. And then you get into what we call self-publishing. Self-publishing has two layers to it. There's vanity press, which I'm going to tell all of you, please don't do this. Please don't. If anybody can put your book into the marketplace and edit it and give you a beautiful cover, and they'll only do it for about $5,000, please don't spend your money. Please don't. Don't do that. If you're going to be a self-published person, you really need to be in the publishing industry first. You really need to know what a book is, how a book is put together, what distribution is, because you're going to be the chief cook and bottle washer. So if you go to a service like CreateSpace and you want to self-publish your own book, well, you're going to keep most of the money, but you're also going to do all of the work. All of the covers, all of the identifiers, all of the editing, all of the layout, all of the paginations, all of these things are involved in self-publishing. A lot of people really don't get that, which is why there's so many books self-published and so few of them ever survive or ever sell. Because they're not formatted properly. And there's a science in publishing to what a book looks like. How it looks, how it reads, the fonts, the sizes, the color of the paper, the texture of the paper, the density of the cover. All of these things all go into making your book a legitimate book that somebody would pick up at any bookstore or any library, and it would feel like a book and look like a book, and when you open it up, the words aren't lost down in the crack. Y'all ever seen books like that? The words are down in the crack and you kind of tearing the book up trying to read it. They didn't know how to publish a book. That's called a gutter. And it has, there's certain purposes for it. You'll see a lot of books that aren't justified. Then you get off into what I call the slightly turn right in books. And now you have ebooks. And an ebook is a little bit of a misnomer. An ebook is an electronic book. It is basically a website contained in a book format so that people can read it on a portable reader, or their computer, or their phone, or any app can do it these days. So that is set up and going. And now you also have a resurgence of audiobooks. And audiobooks are getting bigger and bigger. They're growing. People are, have less and less time, and they like to listen to the human voice when they drive. So if you get a book out, you sell 5,000 or 10,000 copies, you might look into getting your book converted to an audiobook. But I've warned everybody, if you just got published, I'll relate a Tommy Hancock horror story. Who was a publisher, a friend of mine, Pro Se, got a phone call from this new writer from one of our lot, because he knew his book was coming out in a couple of weeks. And Tommy got a call from him from the car lot, and he's like, what do you need? And the guy's like, well, how much is my first advance check going to be? And Tommy's like, nothing. You haven't sold any books yet. You have a check coming. Oh, well, how much is the first check normally? Why are you asking? One of these things we kind of covered before you left the office. Oh, well, I'm down here buying a new car. No, you're not. No, stop. Put the brakes on. Literally, don't buy the new car. Go home. So, publishing is, It's a hard business. There's a lot of people out there doing it, and again, with self-publishing being so easy these days, there's a lot of less than good work out there. So there's a lot of work to make yourself heard and a lot of work to kind of rise above the rest of the junk. So, any questions on the actual layers of publishing? Questions, cards, comments, da, da, da. Everybody, all right, we're kind of there? Alrighty, let's dive into the process of getting, what you actually go through, getting your manuscript to a publisher. One, you're now going to invest a massive amount of your life typing. So we're gonna pick on a novel, a 100,000 word novel. You're gonna spend the next 3, 6, 9 months of your life or longer. I meet people all the time who are like, I've been working on this book for 10 years. So you're gonna spend a lot of time getting it written. And I will tell people, basically, you can't be a grown-up and write a book. It can't be done. Because grown-ups finish things. You know, we start at A, we get to Z, we're done. With a manuscript, that is so not true. That is so not true. Just tell your story. Tell your story. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to edit it. Don't try to guess things about it. Don't, oh, this is good, or oh, this is bad. Don't do any of that. Just write. Type, 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 type. Type till you can't type no more. That gets your story out. Then you put it down for a day or two, maybe a week. Now you're ready to go back and start editing. And you'll find the commas, and you'll find the periods, and you'll find the double words, and the little red squigglies on your computer screen. And now you can go back and start, and take your time, and just ride through it. Read it out loud to yourself. Some of that stuff that was really, really clever a couple of weeks ago at 2 o'clock in the morning isn't so clever now. And some of the things you thought were absolute dirt that you just plowed through to get through it, yeah, the last couple of weeks, that got pretty good. That's not bad stuff, as you kind of go through it. Once you're done with that process, then it needs to go to somebody else. It needs to get out of your hands. Somebody else needs to take a shot at editing it. If you've got an English major somewhere in the house, don't let them rewrite it. Just let them fix a few things.
Let them mark it up.
Yeah.
Because you have to make the decision. So let them mark it up in the sides and the margins, either give it to them in printed form or Word with tracking on it or something, where you don't want them to change your writing, you want them to comment on your writing.
Gets it out there. Go back, agree or disagree, make those changes. And at this point, you need to do something that is just terrible to yourself. Get a non-family member. It's important. It has to be a non-family member that you can bribe easily with, you know, drinks and pizza. And you need to have them read it out loud to you. That totally changes how you hear and see your story.
One thing I suggest too, in looking at our youngest author in the room, I would recommend whoever you're writing for, that age group, let someone from that age group read it back to you. Because their interpretation is going to be completely different. So if you're writing for your friends, have some friends over for a pizza party and let them read it. And let them read it out loud to you, because what you're going to hear them say and how they react. Did they smile when you smiled? Did they laugh when you laughed? Did they get scared when you laughed? You might find you need to change some words around. But if it's for an older audience, or if it's for family, that it's about family history or something, you have to think about that audience, and having them read it to you is going to interpret it differently for you.
It's a little shocking. It's a little shocking.
Yes.
And the best part is you can't correct them. You just sit there with your manuscript and mark it up. You're like, oh, it's torture. It's just torture. Have them do a chapter or two, or however long you can con them into it. And then guess what? You're going to go back and rewrite again. You're going to go back and rewrite again. At that point, you're now ready to possibly begin shopping your manuscript. Come on in. You're ready to dive in and start seeing if there's somebody out there. Go to conventions, attend seminars, hang out with things, see who you can meet in the business. That can point you towards a publisher that specializes or works with your genre. So if you wrote that great vampire thriller, do not call Kids R Us. They're probably not going to, even if they want your book, they probably couldn't sell your book, because they just don't have that kind of an audience. If you blow up planets, I got a great publisher for you. If you like 1940s detectives, I got a great publisher for you. If you write a lot of poetry, there's a lot of poetry journals out there looking for your work. So you just kind of get a little targeted, kind of get where you want to go with who you need to talk to. And then you get into negotiations over what does your book pay, how long is it going to be out, all that kind of good stuff. And you don't really have to have a lawyer these days, because contracts and stuff are all pretty straightforward and simple. But I will say, always plan the divorce. There should always be a way for you to get your work back. Always have a way to get your work back. So if they're going to distribute the book for 2 or 3 years, that's great. But at what point does my book come back to me?
All versions of your book.
Yeah, I agree. All your rights. All your
All
rights.
rights back.
Can you enumerate the different kinds of rights? Like
Oh my gosh.
audiobook and ebook and everything different?
Audiobook, ebook, of anthology distributions, reprints, of is it possibly going to move to any type of media? So is it going to be a as read by? Is it going to be acted out? Could it possibly even be sold as a script? The rights to the script could be sold. If the rights to the script are sold, that'll probably be the last time the writer has anything to do with it, unless you're Stephen King or something like that. And then they'll have somebody, butcher your book and steal the parts they like and turn it into the movie that you'll cringe about. But like I tell everybody, the check was good. Okay, you smile a lot and go, well, how many movies have you had made? So, I don't care if they did a terrible job with my movie. I have a movie.
So I'm sorry, with the exception of Stephen King, he's probably one of the most commercially successful authors that I could really think of.
Yeah.
Was he a little bit smarter with his negotiations in terms of reserving the rights?
Not terribly. Stephen King's secret to success is that the minute he decided to be a writer, it became a business.
Yeah.
And he got up every morning and he went to work. And he's reiterated this in many, many interviews. When they decided, he was going to work from home.
It's available
Yep.
here at the library.
Yep. He would get up in the morning and he had his office, and he went in his office at 8 o'clock in the morning and he closed the door because Daddy had gone to work. And Daddy worked until 5. And at 5 o'clock, Daddy would come home from work. And the Stephen King's secret to success was raw productivity and storytelling ability.
Sure.
To the point he was actually, because of his ability to write, and he kind of believes like me, there's no such thing as writer's block. If you have the ability to articulate that you need a glass of water, you can write. If you can articulate in any way, there's no such thing as writer's block. Writer's block is just stress. It's anxiety. That's just, we'll get in that in a little bit about being a new writer. Never sit down at a blank page and just go, be creative. Doesn't work. You need to have writing is much more of a grueling point of view. It's like, oh, if I don't get this stupid story out of my head, sit down and go. Stephen King just pounded out story after story after story, to the point where they had him writing under other names. And he was still selling. So a Richard Bachman book, those are all Stephen King. So, even his novellas, his short stories, whatever the man wrote, was awesome. So.
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing about contracts. So when you get to dealing with agents and the big 5 and things like that, the contracts get infinitely more complicated. And yes, you probably do need an attorney. If you're dealing with a mid-size publisher, even some of the boutique publishers, the contracts are generally very simple and very straightforward because they get it. Their bread and butter is keeping more work coming into them and them helping along with the author to help push the sales. So there's kind of this more mutual handshake of we're in this as a partnership. So contracts do vary. If you get into the big ones, if you get a very complicated contract that's more than about a page and a half, get a lawyer and have them look it over. It just is your best interest. Because then if that book does take off, you want the rights, you want to make sure you've got them. there's been many a horror story of authors who didn't understand a clause. They could put lots of words on paper, but for some reason, when you gave them legal speak, they couldn't get it. And they lost their rights. And the publisher went under, and they couldn't figure out how to get their own rights back to their own books.
And if you don't understand something in the contract, you definitely need someone to help look it over. Don't be afraid to question it.
No, by any means. And we actually talked to a self-published through a Vanity Press author at one of our bookstore appearances last year. And she'd made the mistake of investing, and she didn't understand the contract, but she also didn't, she spent all this money. And then to her horror, found out every time something came around, it was like, oh, well, you know, there's this event in San Francisco, and you should go and attend and sell your book, and we'll send you something ahead, like, we'll send you some copies of your books ahead. By the way, you're responsible for everything, your flights, your arrangements, making sure that you have your stuff there. Publishing is not, I show up, I'm not Jessica Fletcher writing Murder, She Wrote, and I just get to show up, you know? It's not that. You
No,
have
not
to
enough people
plan.
die around you.
No, that's true. And I did get rid of the typewriter, no.
If
But-
Jessica Fletcher walks in, I'm running, because way too many people die around
Way
her.
too many people
Really.
die around her, yeah.
We're bad.
But, you know, and she actually has one of her shows is centered around someone buying the rights to her book, and she's in horror when she goes to watch to see, you know, what the film is all about, and she's on the set, and she's just horrified by it. And she finally asked him, why did you buy my book? You're not even sticking to the story. He goes, oh, I didn't want the book, I just want the title.
Oh, wow.
So you need to know what your rights are.
Well, that's happened to Anne Rice.
Yes.
It's happened to Jim Butcher. Yeah, it's happened to a lot of people.
It
Oh, yeah.
happens to a lot of people, and you have to know what your rights are, but sometimes you have to be, as Alan says, willing to just go, I don't care what you do, just give me the money. You know, it depends on what you're in it for. If you really want to protect your integrity, you have to know what those rights are. But if you're willing to say, you know, you like Chalice Moon, I'll let you do whatever you want, just give me the money, you know, then that's good. And you think now that it's easy to let it go, wait till you sell your first book and you get the money in hand and you go, I just sold that. Then you get real possessive. Or the first day the editor comes back with a red line change and you go, no, I don't want to change that. You can get very possessive. So knowing your rights and understanding your emotions during that period are both very important. Because sometimes you forget to read what the contract says because you're so emotionally excited about the contract.
Or you get the contract in hand, and you just want to sign your name.
No, that's the worst thing you can do. Take it to your best friend, let him read it first. Just to get it out of your hands, take it to a family member or a best friend and say, just read this. I'm really excited, read it for me. Because your best friend's gonna look at it from a different perspective.
Right,
And they're
let's see.
gonna slow you down.
You got the contract, you've signed the contract, you sent the contract in, now what happens? Now it gets painful, because now all of the work you did, it now goes to the publishing company, and guess what they're gonna do? The exact same thing you just did. And it's gonna go to an editor, and it's gonna come back to you. And then it's gonna go back to an editor, and then it's gonna come back to you. This is not a fast process, this is
It's
not
intense.
this is not like, ooh, I turned in my manuscript and I have a book in 2 weeks.